Good morning. We're live. Hopefully you can hear me out there in the interweb, right? We're doing a live class here. We've got a good group of a handful or more, so hopefully join with us. We're going to go over some tips to make a strong offer, right, in this crazy seller's market. I'll be posting the links to this handout I'm going over so you guys can get access to it. But I'm not going to dive into it real deep because a lot of it's some of the basic contract stuff is what's in this handout. But we'll go over the clauses and the tips that'll basically help push your offer over the edge, right? So everybody got one, right? Handout here that's here. So I made this for brand new agents, and it really kind of ties in with everything, right? I mean, ultimately, you can take this as a brand new agent, and it's a real guide on some best practices to find out, you know, what it's going to take to get your offer to win, right? And so the main thing is make those calls, right? Talk to that agent. That's one thing I've experienced just in the last couple of weeks. I had a listing, and guess what? An offer came, and it's like a blind offer. They showed the house, but they never called me. They didn't know what my seller wanted. We wanted a post-possession, right? So they didn't have any clue what was going to win. And we did get another offer come in. So just it's one thing that you really got to do, right? Make those calls, talk to the agents. I know some don't answer. That's always a challenge, but you got to persevere, right? Call the listing agent, build that relationship. Remember, that's gonna be a deciding factor for some listing agents. How was that communication? How was that call? Were they a jerk from the get-go? I'm going to let the seller know that this might be a difficult one, right? Because of the actions or the attitudes or the conversations. So keep that in mind. It's important how you act when you make these calls. They are judging you, right? Unfortunately. But talk to them. Find out what it's going to take, you know, ask them some questions. I've got some on here. But initially, you know, you just want to call it for the showing. Do you have offers already? Is it still available? You don't want to show it when they just accepted an offer last night, right? You know, your buyers will think you don't know what you're doing. It'll be the big thing. And so make those calls. I text them. If I'm not getting a response back, you know, I might not show it. You know, if they approve my showing time and it's still go and show, I probably will, but I want to try to at least find out what's going on. Do you have those offers? Oh, are you presenting at noon today or at 5 p.m.? You know, because that's going to make a difference whether I got to rush back and write this offer, you know, this afternoon, or I got plenty of time, right? And so you just got to communicate, try to get as many questions answered, but build that rapport, right? And so don't push hard with the agent, but certainly ask the question. You know, when you're presenting it right and what's in your hand. And then basically you're off and running. You show it, you know, once you find those buying signals, get in and get out of there. And then get back, run your comps. And then a whole list here, right, of what you should be doing to put your buyer expectations as a big part of it. You know, but definitely finding out if that offer price can even be supported. That's a big problem we're seeing here with lots of low appraisals. So you don't want to set your buyer up to fail on that front as well. If we're pushing the price up 5 to 10, 15,000 over list price, you want to set that expectation that it could all backfire here if the seller never gets realistic, right? And so you got to have those conversations on how those scenarios play out. And if you don't know, you know, talk with your team leader or broker and find out, because we've been through this market, a similar market where it's crazy, and eventually buyers give up, right? They get fed up after 10 tries and they pull out of the market. We're seeing that a little bit, you know, so the thing is you got to stay positive and keep your head down and keep moving quickly through these, right? And I'll share with you an experience I just recently went through, kind of how that worked. Luckily, we got it, but it took 5 offers. This is a VA buyer. They're some of the toughest. But ultimately, we persevered because we kept writing. We tried to be the first one in the gate. We were second best on the one they really wanted. But boy, when you lose one, buyers get really motivated, right? And so that helps too. You know, you hate to do it, but sometimes you got to go through those motions and put an offer in when there's 15 others, so that your buyer experiences the pain and realizes, I can't come in under market value, or I can't try to get concessions right in this market. And so most buyers are hopefully understand that, but there's still some that don't, you know. In some parts of the valley aren't flying off the shelf like they are here, right, in Chandler and Gilbert. We had 33 offers on a Catherine's Chandler listing in the last week and a half. And it's crazy. And on her story, she talked to the seller about which offers to present. He said, narrow it down to the 5 you think are the best. He wanted the agent to determine. So she went through and ran, you know, did her due diligence and figured out which ones were the strongest, you know, because they were all financing, I believe. But that's what we're up against, right? Lots of offers, and you got to be able to stand out and look the best. And part of that is that communication piece, right? So when I call an agent, is, hey, you know, how's it going? I mean, gosh, you got offers? Is it crazy? What's going on? You know, I try to relate with them, just build that rapport and say, yeah, my buyers are excited, they're ready. We've already lost a couple. They're serious. We're looking to close quickly. You know, we're through the hurdles on the loan. We're fully approved. You know, that can help if you're already fully approved with no prior to doc conditions. Now you can close the loan maybe in 2 to 3 weeks. That's a great tactic too that you might use. If you've already lost a couple, your buyer can still keep moving forward on the loan process, right? And so that might be an option, but we'll go over some of those different clauses and tips and tricks too here at the end. But I hope that makes sense, you know, how important it is. But that's why I call on the showing, and then I call before the offer, and then I might even be calling during when they're countering back and forth, you know, because I want more opportunities to build that relationship, right, with the agent. That's what helps seal the deal sometimes. Because just in my experience, this agent that never called me and sent the offer, you know, there's no relationship. And so I don't know what kind of deal that's going to be. But an agent that's saying, hey, I'm going to make this as smooth as possible, you know, and I'll work with you. We'll be flexible. We're going to make the inspections. We'll get through them quickly. We're going to move right along, and you know, it'll be as smooth as possible. That's the message you're portraying, right? Because you got to put your client's best foot forward. So you want to just have those opportunities. Look at them as opportunities. Don't look at it as, oh, do I need to call this? I'm showing 10 homes. Do I need to call all these listing agents? Do it. I mean, that's our job. That's how we used to do it, right? I've been doing this 20 years, and that's how we did it. We had to call. We didn't have showing time. And that makes a difference. You build on those relationships, talking to the agents, because that's what, you know, this business is. It's all relationships, right? And so if you're the fighting agent that always wants to fight against the other side, you know, that gets out there. And these other agents know that. And if I got an offer from one of these fighting agents, you're not going to have much luck on my listing. If I have anything to say with it, I'm going to let my seller know my experiences and the facts that I've been through, right? Because that's how we set our expectations for our clients. It's all based on our experience and our facts, right? So, but setting expectations is critical, definitely. So confirm with the lender, just hitting some of these points. I won't hit all of them, but just a couple different ones to, you know, before you're getting ready to submit this, talk with your lender. one thing is, we used to do the pre-qual for the amount of our offer price. But now that's not the best strategy. In my mind, in my case I just did, my VA buyer could go to 350, 400, but the budget was, 310, 315, 320. It was a cap. And so what we did is we kept the pre-qual at 350. We want to show that, hey, we can go higher, right? And so that strategy's changed, right? And all these strategies, they come and go, and you can employ them at different times, but that's what you got to figure out. What works for this seller? What are they looking for? Do they want a post-possession, right? Get those little gold nuggets from the agent, Or, they're trying to buy a new build and it's not ready till, October 15th. We can do a 70 or 90-day close, right? That's what'll be best for the seller. That's how you get the edge, by getting those golden facts, right? And that's why it's so important to call. It's not about just making the call to ask the quick questions. It's building that relationship and really figuring out. Now, sometimes I don't dive deep into that until we're ready to make an offer, right? That's the second call. Then it's like, what are they really looking for? The first time, it's just for the showing. You can kind of get some expectations of what the seller's wanting, but really you're just finding out if it's available and it's worth showing, or is this seller really unrealistic, right? Way overpriced. That might be something you're talking about with that. If it's been on the market a while, right? If it's brand new, you pretty much just got to go and deal with what's going on, right? Make sure you're disclosing, all the things you need to your buyer, right? Affiliated business disclosure. We're in this big rush to get homes accepted, and we're seeing people miss that. EXP, right? Everyone here is with EXP, I'm hoping. Hopefully, out in the online world you might not be, but we have an affiliated business arrangement disclosure. And so that's supposed to be presented before you submit the offer, right? And so if you are using, you need to be using that, but that's basically, if you're using their title companies, Revelation, we had a little different policy, right? We had to use it only if we were using that vendor. EXP, all buyers and sellers have to use it, whether you use those third-party vendors, right, or preferred vendors. That's just their policy. They.
Bottom line said, I am referring them to, not doing it like that. I don't understand that.
Well, it's because E&O is a big part of it. A lot of the bigger you get, the stricter the E&O is, and so that's why they're a little stricter on owner agent sales too. They have a whole separate addendum, which we didn't, but and they require a home warranty and a SPUD if you're an owner agent selling, right? And that's because if you don't do those things, E&O won't cover it. And so it's the same thing. They could get sued if they're not doing this. It's almost like a property manager. They have to treat all deals fairly and disclose to all buyers the same.
I am referring you to these people, and you're not. I was referring.
Right, but what you should have said is, well, no, that's an option if you want to use them. I know we're not, but technically I am referring the opportunity that you can use them. Right? That's a great thing. I'll let them know, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of it, but with the growing pains, hopefully the docs requirement will shift and get easier on us, I'm sure, but there are some things that E&O just, they say we want it on all files, so. But that's why I wanted to talk about it, because people don't know that, because that wasn't what we were doing at Revelation, right? So just be aware of that. You definitely want that signed off on early on. Basically do it with your agency, right? Agency, a buyer advisory, probably also this affiliated business arrangement, and then your contract, right? So just have them sign that right with it. We talked about some of the things. You're asking the listing agent now, right? Before you're putting your offer in, now that you've looked at the comps, obviously if you're not finding any that support the value, I would be asking them for that. Can you send me those if you have some comps that support your value? Because you want to know. If there aren't any, he doesn't have any, you better set that expectation with the buyer that they're pulling this number out of the sky. It might not appraise. Maybe we need to shift the offer and do our due diligence upon receipt of our appraisal. We order the appraisal first. That's a strategy we've used when there's unrealistic sellers, right? And so if you're not having luck with these new homes on the market, go find ones that have been on for several weeks or longer because they're overpriced. And that's the strategy you use. Hey, seller, I'll pay your price only if it appraises, but I'm not gambling my money. You don't have offers. You pay the appraisal up front. If it appraises, we'll reimburse you at closing. If not, we're walking away and now my buyer's out zero because we're not doing our due diligence until we receive that appraisal and know it appraised and we're moving forward, right? So I've used that strategy too on, because if you really can't, FHA or VA, those are the toughest, right now in this market, because there's a ton of conventional and cash buyers. And so if you have those, that might be a great strategy to employ. That was what I was thinking we were needing to do with the VA, because that one has a bigger stigma, unfortunately, in our market. But luckily, we found one that was 5 days on the market. They had an offer initially, but they pulled it back because buyers get cold feet. One thing you'll see too, the market is way more volatile now, and that's because there's 15 offers. Gosh, I got to write 15,000 over just to get it, right? And then I sit home after I got it accepted thinking, gosh, I'm overpaying for this thing. I can't pay that much. I want out, right? And they get out. And so it's happening a lot. So being a backup offer, second position or third position, just having them hold it as backup, you might be able to fall into a deal that way too. So always, whenever you get the rejection email, say, oh, can you please at least hold it for backup? Let me know if something changes, because we would still love an opportunity, right? That's the message you say on that. And they're probably not going to sign it in writing, but at least you might have another opportunity while you're out still looking, right? Because there are properties popping back on, right, all the time. And you just got to be ready, right? Because the second they pop on, you better go look at it if you haven't seen it, right? Or rewrite the offer. So hopefully that makes sense on that. Let's see what else. Are there any other specific terms, right? You're checking the MLS, you're checking for the documents in the MLS tab. You want to include those to make your offer as, full, like the listing agent wants, all addendums there that they're wanting. Oh, this is an important one. Are they trying to close on another home, right? If they are, I would encourage you to offer a post-possession because it'll make it so much easier on the seller, right? Give them a 5-day buffer. That's what I try to structure for my clients, because if you try to do it all in one day, you're bound to fail. And, can it be done? Absolutely. But in this market where it's volatile, appraisals are taking forever, and we're not able to close deals in 30 days, our average is more like 40, 45 now, and you're trying to close in 30, there's delays all the time. And so just be prepared, set that expectation, and try to get a buffer, I think, is the important one there. Longer escrow, that's an option. I know that's what we did initially as a listing agent. Because we didn't have the second home, so we scheduled a 60-day escrow. We wanted at least a month to be looking and still then be able to close, right? And so that's what was important. We wanted a post-possession. They wouldn't give it, so at least we got a long escrow. But I set the expectation with my client, because they didn't give us a post-possession, you better have a backup plan, right? Whether that's an Airbnb or a hotel, short-term stay, or a family, right? Have a backup plan, because if we sell your house and we haven't located, don't be homeless, right? You can't not sell. You're committed to selling once you sign, right? So just make sure you go over all those scenarios. And if you're not sure, they're asking you questions you're not sure of, reach out and we can give you some guidance there. Preferred title company, that's huge. If there's not one in the MLS, ask the listing agent. That'll go a long way. That's a great question, right? When you're asking them, hey, I didn't see you put a title company. Who's your favorite that you guys would love to use? Great. Because the reality, their fees are all about the same, right? Unless you're trying to do a double close, then maybe you want it at yours, right? So that was one of the challenges we had on this VA deal. We were already under contract. We wanted the same title. So we had to give a little bit. We gave a little bit more price. And so ultimately, you know, they got what they want, and we were able to get the date and the title company we wanted, right? So that's a big thing to set the expectation, right, with clients in this market is you can't have your cake, you know, something in the video here, cake and eat it too, right? It just doesn't happen that way in this market. And so, yeah, you'll win when you sell, but when you buy, guess what? You're going to pay market value, maybe even a little over, you know, but everybody who's buying now does. And so if you're downsizing or leveling over or upsizing, you know, the reality of it is you have to move. So it's a wash in essence, right? Unless you're downsizing and you can rent, you know, you sell at the top of the market and then rent until prices come down and you might get ahead. But if this is a personal place to live, I tell clients you can't worry about time in the market. If you need a house for your family, you got to buy what we can get. And here, you know, this is how it works. So, and if it's not the right time, I get it. Maybe we should hold off until it calms down or we get more inventory, right? And so you got to be prepared to say that. I've said it to clients, and sometimes, you know, they get more serious when you tell them they can't have it as easy as they thought. They're like, well, I still want to do it. And so sometimes you get them off that fence, right? Or get them to be realistic and understand that it's going to be a challenge. We can do it as long as we're moving and prepared and going out as fast as possible, right? And just making it happen. So personal property conveying, that's a great one you want to talk about. Appliances, right? Security systems, cameras, Ring doorbells. We've had some issues with those. So, you know, ask about them. If it's not in the MLS, ask about it and make it easy so the seller doesn't have to counter. You know, they got a Ring doorbell that they want to, you know, give it to them, right? As a buyer's agent. You know, because if they're really attached to something in the house, you know, you don't want to be the only agent asking for it. You know, they just won't counter you, right? That's another great question. Is the seller's name accurate in Monsoon? Or is there another name to use, right? Because maybe they moved it to a trust and it's not reflected. Maybe one passed away. That's why I always ask that question, because I once had that. I put both the names on the contract and one had passed away. The seller was so upset because her husband had recently passed, she didn't want to sign our offer because it had his name on it. Gosh, so guess what? I always ask that question now. Are both the names the right names? Or do I need to leave one off? What's going on? Why are they selling? You know, I try to ask that too. That shows that you care and you want to try to be empathetic to the seller's needs, right? It goes a long way with building that relationship with the agent, right? If there's no HOA, ask them if they can send it. Don't demand it though. And if they don't get it to you and you still need to put your offer in, submit it without it. I'm sorry, with it. Just leave page 1 blank. You don't fill that out. You just set the expectation with the buyer of what they are. Estimate. You know, here's what other MLS listings are showing. It looks like they're about X amount. Looks like there might be a transfer fee, maybe a capital improvement. We'll verify all this during due diligence. You know, and if they're comfortable paying them, you know, you pay them. If there's no other offers and there's no HOA, I put the sellers paying them all because they didn't tell us what they are. But in a multiple offer situation, you can't do that, right? You got to probably pay them all as a buyer. So just get an idea of what those are. But but know that you got to verify during due diligence. Set that expectation. And those are the main ones that I ask. Just try to get as much detail as I can, and then that gives you that ability to go back, put the best offer together. And then so the rest of this document, is basically I go line by line here. Line 1, how you should be filling it out. So like, again, new agents can take this and complete an offer and feel confident they didn't miss anything. Seasoned agents, if you haven't gone through line by line, this is an idea of what I've seen over the years and what I think to be some of the best ways to structure the different terms and sections of the contract. I'll open it up for questions if anybody has on any particular lines, but I'll just hit on some of my favorites too. Any questions in here? But we'll go down like earnest money. That's a big one, right? It's one thing that you can use to strengthen your offer. And so like I said, we'll jump through these, but I'll kind of gonna hit on my talking points from the back page and the clauses as we go through it. So we'll just talk about those as we go down through the contract. Before I dive into that, one other thing I wanted to mention. This is a great, I found this in AAR. This is the buyer and seller's guide to multiple negotiations, right? And it's great. It's a great little scenario if you haven't been in a multiple offer situation. It's got some strategies and ideas for buyers and sellers. A couple things, a couple key points that I liked about it. There's one for buyers. This is important that took me a lot of years to really understand, I think, and most new agents don't understand it, but purchase offers generally aren't confidential. In some cases, sellers may even make other buyers aware of your offer and the terms in hand, right? Even disclose all the details of the offer to another buyer in hopes of convincing that buyer to make a better offer, right? And in some cases, seller will instruct the listing broker to disclose an offer to other buyers on their behalf, right? And so what's that all mean? It means if I've got two offers, one's cash, but he's $10,000 under list price, and I got an FHA or VA at list price, I'm only going to call the cash guy back and say, hey, I got multiple offers. We'd really want to work with you, but we've got full price offers. If you can come up to full price, you're going to win, right? Or I might just counter him directly with the multiple counter offer and try to get him up, get him to his highest number, and then let the seller decide what's the best offer, right? And that's the real thing you need to know is there's lots of strategies that sellers handle. They might counter one, they might counter all, they might say highest and best, they might tell you nothing and just take the first offer because they want to be fair to the first person. Crazy, some sellers do that, even when it's 20,000 less. I've seen sellers do it, right? And so that's why you want to be first to the game too, if you can. I thought we were going to win one with this VA buyer because we were first. We had the offer to them within three to 4 hours of her going live on a Friday at noon. It wasn't even on the list. I was showing, and I know this was Saturday, and it popped up at noon. We were halfway through our tour. We added it right in, and luckily we were at the end of our tour, so then we went and wrote right on it. We didn't win it because there was a better non-VA offer. It basically matched ours conventional, right? And so that's a challenge. But they collected them, and so we could have tried to push. We want a quick decision. I've seen agents doing that. I haven't had a lot of success on pushing listing agents to make quick decisions, but some cash buyers want to go that route. No, this is only good till tonight at 8 o'clock or the offer expires, right? And so that can be a strategy. It can be risky. If your buyer really loves the house and wants it, I wouldn't employ that strategy, right? Because they'll call you out on it in this market. Sellers don't care. They think it sells so easy. If you don't buy it, the next one will, right? And so that's why building that relationship is really key on that. There's another point on here. Again, is setting the expectations, right? But this was, I thought, was something to add into your language if you're not. But really, our advice is based on our past experience, and it's really no guarantee, right, as to how any particular seller or transaction will go. And so I've had a lot of experiences over 20 years, but everyone is still new and different, right? And so, you know, you can share what we are seeing, but the reality of it is, who knows what can happen. And so that's why you just be persistent, be positive, tell them as long as we keep moving forward and keep doing it. Sometimes I write multiple offers at the same time. You know, you can do that. You need to be disclosing though. I had 2 agents out of the 5 offers we wrote. 2 of them didn't like that because I added the disclosure into the offer. And so their question was, well, if you guys have other offers out, you know, you're probably not going to be in the running. So now that I knew that was a concern, I immediately sent them a written message saying the buyer does not currently have any other offers out. I gave a written disclosure that we didn't, because we didn't at that point, and that gave them reassurance that they wanted, you know. And so on the one we won, it was the same thing. So on one of them, the one I thought we were going to win, that was her concern. I overcame that. We ended up losing still. But on the one we won, that agent had that concern too. So a good listing agent is going to pick up on that and either want to counter that out, and that's basically what she did. She countered out that language that we could continue to write offers, right? It's smart. But I like to put it in, you know. I just add in a disclosure that says buyer reserves the right to submit multiple offers. Right? Yeah, that's the best place. There's actually a form for it. Multiple offer and counter offer. Oh, you can't see that well, but basically you can send this as a buyer with your offer saying, I've got another offer out. So once you accept ours, then we're going to do the final acceptance as a buyer. What seller is going to deal with that with multiple offers? Nobody. So I wouldn't use this strategy. And to be honest, in 20 years, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody use it, but we've had it. But what you need to know about it is it's an ethics violation if you're writing offers and you're not disclosing you're writing on more than one, unless your buyer can buy 2 homes, right? But if they can only afford to buy one, you need to disclose that you're writing multiple offers. I don't like to do it. You know, I try to avoid it as much as I can, but in this market, it's hard not to, you know? So definitely think about the pros and cons and watch yourself, because you don't want to risk your own ethics, right? Because a lot of buyers, they submit an offer, they didn't disclose, and now they're not responding for 2 days over the weekend. Let's go right on this one too. It's like, well, we can't now because we didn't tell this guy we were doing that. You know, we can do an addendum and modify that offer, but you know, so if your buyer's thinking that's how they're going to win, or if you think that's what you need to do to win, then make sure that's being disclosed, right? And then they had a couple great questions on here that I'll read that I thought were really, and these can work for buyers or sellers. But will a seller disclosing information about one of buyer's offers make a second buyer more likely to make a full price offer? Or will the second buyer purchase or pursue a different property altogether, right? Because it happens, you know, not so much now, it's getting accustomed because that's the standard, but there was a time where if there was a multiple offer, a buyer would say, well, then I'm not going to compete. I don't want to compete. And they would just go find another house, right? some buyers don't want to compete. You know, unfortunately now I think they all have to, but they might not. And so as a listing agent, you got to get written permission to share any information, even the knowledge that you have an offer present. So you shouldn't be saying as a listing agent, oh yeah, I got multiple offers, you know, unless you have permission from your seller to disclose that information, right? And you should do that in writing in your ER as a listing agent. We're talking mainly about buyers, but I want you to be aware of that. And so even when they say we're not presenting offers till Sunday at 5 and it's Friday, they better have written instructions to do that. You shouldn't question them as a buyer's agent. That's going to hurt your chances, right? But just, you know, imagine they do. Hopefully they're doing it right. But that's how they're able to do that. If that's what the seller wants to do and he puts that in writing, we as a listing agent got to honor that, right? It might not be the best advice, but if he wants to do that and take that risk that some buyers might not compete or they might not put an offer in altogether, then that's on him, right? Because you never want to be the agent to be the one to keep deals or offers coming in, right? As a listing agent, you don't want to say, oh yeah, we already got 5 offers and then now they don't write on it and that was the cash buyer with the best offer. And I just scared them away. I want permission from the seller to be able to scare them away, right? But I'm going to try not to. I'm going to say, yeah, no, we're submitting highest and best. Get your strongest offer in and you'll have a shot, right? We're doing it at 5. And so that's why it's important to have those talks, right? Here's the other one. Will telling several buyers that each is being given a chance to make their best offer result in a spirited competition for the seller's property? Or will it result in the buyers looking elsewhere, right? That's the reality. Will it, you know? In this market, they'll put a stronger offer in. That's what we're seeing, right? They're going 10, 15,000 over, we're hearing. Waiving appraisal is big. We're seeing that on all the forums. We don't recommend that, of course, but we'll dig into, you know, some strategies on that here in a minute. But the last piece on this, and this is again from AAR, National Association of Realtors. They had a great summary here at the end, but I'll just read it. Finally, buyers and sellers need to appreciate, right, that in multiple offer situations, only one offer will result in a sale, right? And the other buyers will often be disappointed when their offers are not accepted. While there's little that can be done to avoid that disappointment, fair and honest treatment throughout the offer and negotiation process, coupled with prompt, ongoing, and open communications, can enhance the chances that all buyers, successful or not, will feel they were treated fairly and honestly. That's the one big thing I'm hearing now a lot is from buyers agents, like, I don't even think they presented my offer, right? Or they didn't even hear us, or they didn't give us a time, an opportunity, or they didn't communicate. They didn't even tell us we were rejected. All I saw, it went to pending. And so that's unfortunate, but it set that expectation with your buyer because it's the reality. If you put 5 o'clock tonight on there on a Friday, they're not responding at 5, right? You'd be lucky to get a response tomorrow or Sunday at 5, maybe even Monday. And so I learned that lesson early on. I once forgot to set that expectation and we put 8 o'clock. I knew they weren't probably responding, but I didn't tell my buyer. And they were in knots all night thinking they were going to hear. They were so over it the next day because they're like, oh, the seller screw him now. We were up all night. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my fault. I should have set a better expectation. And so that's part of this, you know, make sure they understand that they're going to do what they want. They got a handful of offers. We can't bully them or push them. We got to act like we'll do whatever they want, right? And if they don't want to respond till Monday, we say, great, no problem. We'll get you our best offer by then. But I might call back, you know, if they're responding at 5 Monday, I might call back at 3 and say, where are you at? What's it going to take now to beat it? Am I still in the running, or do I need to come up another 5 or 10? What's it going to take? Is there anything I could do? You got to ask that question 2 or 3 times, a couple different ways sometimes, and you'll be surprised. They'll say no the first couple, and then they'll finally tell you what they want. That's why I try to call 2 or 3 times, right? Because you just get those opportunities to find out any little sliver that'll help you. All right, so enough on that. Let's dive into the clauses. And so you guys have some of these. I didn't write out all the clauses, most of them we have somewhere. But this is the gold, right? Most people probably wanting. Hopefully everybody's online. I don't know if anybody's chatting. I'm not seeing it, so if they are. I don't know where it goes. I apologize. Any questions on anything so far? Before we, yeah.
On the second to last page of the contract, when you put the EXP address, I've been putting the Peoria address. Is that one supposed to be clean, or can I use this address here?
It depends where you're licensed at.
Okay.
Are you here?
No, I think I'm with the Peoria office, so,
And is that because you're on multiple boards?
no.
Okay. But you're not on Pine Top or Sholo or Tucson or Flagstaff board. So if you're joining outside boards from their local valley, you have to hang your license out of the Peoria office. And so you can transfer that through ADRE if you want to transfer it to here. Definitely I would if this is where you work out of. But it should be where your license is currently. Yeah. So, yeah. Uh-huh.
You gotta do that, use DVD.
Yes.
Just put any warranty, I mean, you can use the offer, you don't have one.
Right, and so I used to put TBD too, probably my first 10 years until I started getting into the broker issues. And we've seen some issues. We've actually seen where they put TBD and to the buyer to order, and the buyer's agent or buyer and title didn't order it, and it closed, and nobody caught it. And a month later, the AC broke. Guess what the warranty company says? We're not covering that. We don't care there was a mistake because it doesn't even have our name on that contract. And we've seen cases the opposite. So typically that's why it's denied. But we've seen them the opposite, Old Republic, because they're one of the best. I've used them for 20 years. If you pulled Old Republic on there and it got missed and wasn't ordered, but it was outlined on there, guess what? They'll most likely cover it. They'll backdate that policy because there was a written instruction saying, no, we are using XYZ company, right? Whereas if you put TBD, are you really getting one or not?
Maybe if you have it allergic or closely, you know it, after the inspection.
So here's how you do it.
Just an addendum?
You put a company, your recommended one, and you tell the client, you can look at all these during due diligence. If you want to switch it out, you find a better one, then we'll just do an addendum and we can do that, right? The seller would have to agree, but the seller's not going to care as long as it's not cost them anything, right? You just switch the title, the name of the company.
I just have one with TBD, but I got it, it shows only color, past the inspection. Was that an addendum anyway, saying you,
Not if the policy's in force. You're fine now if it's in force, as long as you ordered the policy. Yeah, you'll be all right. But that's the risk. It's a very rarely ever happens, but, I hate to see agents get caught up in it. And that's the beauty of this, learning all these things, I did the same thing just because, I never saw the end result of one going bad. And that's the thing, bad things happen to deals. And when they do, if it's not clearly defined, it's gray. And then title can't make a decision, right? If it's a gray area. So hope that helps that. All right. So clauses, KISS letter, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Is everybody doing those? Oh, battery dying? Oh, great. You want to do me a favor? Could you? Sweet. I guess streaming uses more battery power. This usually lasts all day. All right, so letters. Catherine just gave me a great one. She just saw an awesome buyer video. Have your buyer doing a 1 or 2 minute video. Way more powerful than the old letter. Don't get me wrong, letters work. We used one too on the VA. He was 22-year retired Navy vet, just retired and is buying here, or staying here. Just this is where he's from, and so I think that helped our case too. You know, we shared the buyer's story, but that's what you're doing, sharing the story, why they want to be in this home in this neighborhood. You know, they love the school district. Tie in something emotional that probably the homeowner likes about the area. You know, so. You saw they had a bunch of horse pictures on their walls, you know, tie that in, right? Make that connection. Or you do a real personalized general one that you can use for multiple ones, you know, because you might need to send it. Yeah.
Just something that I've done with some of my buyers is when they're out touring, I'll actually, on their like top pick or if you really like the house, I'll actually have them stand in front of the house and I'll take a picture of them in front of the house so you can leave the letter.
Nice.
I want an offer because of that photo.
Nice. Right. Something where they're showing, yeah, this is the one, right? Something. Awesome. Earnest money. Think about the competition and be stronger, right? This one, as a broker, I don't like it. And the reason is because, you know, I like to mitigate risk. You know, I got to try to keep my agents safe. And the more earnest, the higher the risk, right? The bigger the risk. And so this is the one exception. Oh, no. Where'd you get this cord? Oh, it was under? Shit, no.
Don't fit. What's the other one? Your back?
It should be under there, too. There wasn't. All right. Hopefully we don't die on you in the internet here, but working on a power cord. So bear with us. But be stronger, right, on the earnest money. Just one thing on that. Average we see typically is 1 to 2%, right? Cash could be 5 to 10%, right? Is kind of average. Bank-owned homes, they used to want 10% on a cash deal, so keep that in mind. That's high and risky, but cash deals is not as important, probably be super strong unless you're competing with other cash buyers. So ask that question. If you're a cash buyer, do you have cash offers, right? It's great to ask that too. What are your offers? They only have 1 or 2. Are they VA, FHA? Try to find out the details. Is it cash? That'll help you position and strengthen yours too. And so what I tell buyers on that, you know, if $300,000 house, you know, normally 1 to 2,000 is what we customarily see. But in this market, if you're putting down anyway 3% or 5%, I mean, go up to 5, 7,000, you know, 9,000, a little bit stronger than the pack, right? That's what sets you apart. Each of these things you tweak a little bit to the buyer's comfort zone. Escalation clause, the tips in the language. This is a language I've kind of tweaked over the last year or so.
Sorry, I didn't even look to see if it was the wrong one.
Yeah, I didn't realize that other one was still in there. There we go. All right, we got juice. Okay. So I don't know if everybody read that. Buyer agrees to pay $1,600 above highest written bona fide offer, not to exceed a total purchase price of $315,000. This was on a, you know, $300,000 listing was the example here. So we went up to 15 over. The seller agrees to provide buyer a copy of highest signed offer, and buyer agrees to execute an addendum to this contract reflecting the final purchase price. Why is that important? You want to make sure it's a valid offer. What if that was written 4 days ago and it expired? I'm not going to match that one. It's off the table, right? And so make sure you add some language in there like that to cover you, because they should be providing that if you're going to raise your offer and escalate, right? And this 1600, this is an important piece too. This was for the example. So I used to see several, we don't get to review all the contracts like we did, so I don't see them like I used to. I just get to hear the stories now. But a lot that I used to see were only like $1,000 in the $300,000-400,000 price range. They would pay $1,000 over. That's not enough. You got to be enough to entice the seller to make a change to your offer, right? And so on a $300,000, in my mind, that's at least $1,600, right? And I kind of use odd numbers. If everybody's using 1,000, I'm 16. I'm the better, right? I've used 2,100 before, right? 2,200, some odd numbers. But the higher the price point, the higher that threshold should be. On a $500,000 or $600,000 house, $2,000 not going to be enough incentive, right? You might need to be 5,000 over the next highest offer, right? Maybe 7,000 over, right? That's the edge. Those little, just those little up, over and above, right? And this one, this next one is one that I've used, and it's been successful, and I've shared with others, and that was the thing that did the trick. Because right now, the listing agents are like, hey, if you can waive your appraisal, right, you probably can win. That's what they all want us to do, but don't do it. Holly had one, if you were in her meeting, they had one come in 100,000 less in the last week or so. I had one 2 days ago, 27,000 less. And we're hearing those over and over, 15, 20,000, 30,000. Well, yeah, if you write 15 or 20,000 over an already high list price, that's why we're seeing this, right? And, you know, that might be a strategy. It sounds like on the forum, that seems to be the strategy, right? 15, 20, 30,000 over, even though we know it won't appraise, as long as you're not waiving that appraisal contingency. When it doesn't appraise, guess what? You're back to the table, and hopefully you get the seller to come down. But if they don't, you just wasted your client's money, you know? And so that's the challenge. So that's why instead of, you know, never want to advise to waive the whole appraisal, because it's just too risky. You can't mitigate that risk, right? Because it could be unlimited damage. And if your buyer doesn't have those funds to close, they're basically in breach. And not only will they risk their earnest, they could be sued for more damages, right? So the best way to do it is by capping the damage. So buyer agrees to pay, you know, in this 300,000 scenario, buyer agrees to pay 500,000 more than the appraised value, not to exceed the purchase price. Should property appraise for less than 295, the normal appraisal contingency shall apply, right? So if the list price is 300, we're saying we'll pay up to 5,000 over if it fails to appraise for 300, right? Basically, we're saying we're going to pay up to 300 if it appraises for 295. But if it's 294, guess what? We get to renegotiate, or the buyer can cancel, right? Or renegotiate. So, but that's, if you can't waive the appraisal, that's the next best thing. Because if the buyer wants it bad enough, they can probably come up with a few extra thousand, you know, and so find out how bad they want it. If you want it, you know, can you come up 5,000 or 10,000 over the appraisal? Because that might be what it takes to get it. But that's how you'd want to structure it. Just be cautious on how you write that. So those next two, I've seen it written this way. Now think about this. If you write it the first way there, buyer agrees to pay up to 5,000 over failed appraisal. Does that mean the seller automatically agrees if it comes in 20,000 less? Does the seller automatically agree to reduce 15,000? She's saying no. Here's the reality. It's a gray area. We've seen fights over that. We had one buyer said, hey, the seller agreed. They would take 5,000 over appraised value, and it came in way low. Sellers already agreed to this new price because of the way it's written. And so the second one is how a listing agent would want it. Buyer is willing to pay up to. Not that you're, you know, because we as a seller still want that opportunity to, you know, agree to this new price if it's not the full purchase price, right? We should be agreeing to that on an addendum. And so that's how people on the forum were, or on the Arizona Real Estate Forum were saying to use this. And I was talking to Catherine this morning, and so the clause above it is what she's used, and you know, it really covers that base and it clarifies it. So it says if it's short, guess what? We come back to the drawing board because you still get your right to cancel. If it's shorter than the, so you're willing to pay 5,000 over, and now it comes in 10,000 short, so there's no deal, let's come to an agreement. And if you can't, then the buyer can still exercise his appraisal contingency notice and cancel, right? If you can't come to terms. So the way she had it is, I thought was great, adding that little extra clause in there. So I hope that makes sense, how to use that. Due diligence, that's another one there that you can shorten maybe a little bit. I know investors, that's how they're getting these wholesale deals right now. They're putting 0 inspection days. So no inspection. I don't advise that with a normal buyer. You definitely want it. Maybe you can do it in 3 or 5 days though. I wrote 7 on a few of mine this last couple of weeks. You know, again, if I can be 3 days better than the next competition, that might be the deal maker, right? You just never know. So that's why I tweak every one of these a little bit, as much as I can, right? Pay the seller's closing costs. That's a big one. A lot of people haven't heard of. You know, it's not common. We never see that in our market. But here's where it might help you. You're concerned it won't appraise if we're raising it $5,000. Well, let's maybe just offer list price, and we'll pay the sellers, you know, $3,000 of closing costs, whatever his closing costs are. That won't affect the appraisal, but that's real money in the seller's pocket that he's going to get. That ups his net. So that's a huge one. Yep, Section 8, you can write that in, absolutely. And so I would cap it probably, right? You don't want to say, I mean, maybe your buyer will, but it's an unknown, right? You don't know what those are. So anytime it's an unknown, I advise the client, cap it. Buyer will pay up to $3,000 of seller's closing costs. We'll credit buyer or seller up to $3,000 towards closing costs, right? So you're capping the damage. Yeah, you'd want to write it in additional terms. You need to write that out, right? HOA fees, right? That's another one where sometimes they're not a lot, but maybe $1,000. You know, pick those up as a buyer. Capital improvement, even the disclosure fee. I know the form says it's supposed to be paid by the seller. That's the law, but guess what? We can negotiate that, so you can pick that up too. Have a lender call the listing agent. That's why I thought I had almost won the first one that we were second place on with this VA buyer, because right when I submitted the offer, I called the lender. My lender's great. He's a vet himself, so he was doing everything he can to help this vet get a deal. He called the agent. Like, the agent was so caught off guard, didn't realize even who it was, because she hadn't even opened the offer yet. And here the lender's calling saying how strong the buyer is, right? But that put us above most of the rest. And so then when they were taking highest and best, I'm like, well, are we still? She's like, yeah, you guys are still the highest. It's just that it's a VA deal. And so, you know, put in, if you can raise it, do it. And so we did. We strengthened it even more, and we were paying $5,000 over appraisal on that one too, but we still were beat out. But we just kept at it, right? And that's the thing. You just got to keep moving on and hopefully get through it. but that helped. Oh, and so that was a 2 or 3, just to finish that thought on that. That was a 2 or 3 day process because they said highest and best, and we went back a couple days. When they were about to make their decision on Monday afternoon, they called the lender again and had a great conversation. The lender called me saying, I think you guys are going to win. I just had another great call. So again, my lender was responsive, took the call, and had that conversation to show how strong the buyer is. Because some of the questions were, do they have funds to pay up over, right? Because we were saying we were going to. They wanted to confirm that. And so, yeah, we were getting lots of proceeds from our sale. So the lender, let them know that that's why we're strong. We got lots of proceeds, and they're qualified for even more. So he painted a great picture. But again, it was our best foot forward. That's what you got to do almost on every offer. And if you're doing all these things consistently, that's what's going to get you to the finish line. It might not be the first one, but at least, these are the best tools to help you get there. And then additional clause addendum. These are probably everybody's seen that. If you don't know, that is in our zip forms and our transaction desk, right? Additional clause addendum. This is the last piece I'll just talk on, but this already has, 7, 8 different clauses already pre-printed. So if you haven't seen this, you should get familiar with it. There's a couple great ones on here that we're using now a lot. Non-refundable earnest money. So that could be one you do, and this is basically after your due diligence, you're waiving your earnest, right, after the bins are processed. So if you are going to make the earnest non-refundable, this is a great clause to use. So either use this or something similar. Same with the waiver of appraisal. If that's the route you're going to go, there's a clause already. Use the clause that the AAR has already come up with for us. Again, I don't recommend that. You're better off to mitigate it by saying, hey, I'll pay up to $5,000 over, right? Failed appraisal. The main thing is don't try to reinvent the clauses. If you don't have a good one, let us know, or you're trying to create one, we'll work with you. But use these if these apply, because these are already made by our lawyers and vetted. The other good one on here is the backup clause. So if you are going to go into a backup situation and execute it, it's got to have this clause, right? So that the seller doesn't sell it to 2 people, right? And the clause basically says this is backup position only. Upon receipt of the cancellation notice, your offer moves to first position automatically, right? So it's a great clause if you are going to do backup. So if you know you're submitting a backup, include that with the offer so they don't have to counter, right? Any questions on that? David, you had a question on something? Yes, she does. So on our Arizona State Group workplace, so she has some clauses. She has a escalation clause. I think what I use is we pulled from the Revelation one. We have an extra sentence in there essentially for the bona fide offer. It's a little stronger in my opinion, but definitely there's a handful of good clauses she has too in there. If you haven't seen that, take a look. So what else? Anything else? Any other thoughts or questions? Yeah. In my business, so the question was, how often do you show under contract homes? In my business, I try never to show those because they're sold, right? I don't want to get my buyers' hopes up. And so I try not to write backups. The only time is when we got beat out. Yeah, keep it as a backup. Or my clients saw it and this is their dream home and they want a shot even though it's already gone, then I would write a backup, and maybe show it. But normally, yeah, no, I don't show those. I mean, they are getting shown, I've heard a little bit. The CCBS, those are getting shown for sure. They didn't used to at all, a year or two ago. But now those are being shown. UCBs, I imagine they still are, but Not by many. I mean, I went right to pending on my listing, and a lot do, because then the days on market freeze, right? Because it's more important, because we went under contract on day 5. It's more important for my seller, if this deal falls apart, we can go back live and look like, hey, we're still a week new. Whereas if I would have went to UCB to try to collect a potential backup, which we don't really want to sign anyway, you know, we'd hold it, but I don't advise sellers to sign them in most cases. And so that was our strategy. You know, this is a seller's call, you know, on going to pending, but that's why, because we wanted to still retain that freshness, you know. But if we were already 15, 30 days on the market, then we would have been UCB trying to show it. But the reality, and they have 4 dogs. It's showing is a challenge, you know. I mean, it's some elderly dogs, and so, you know, for them, no showings is better, you know. Not pending, you don't get any showings, of course. But yeah, I wouldn't, as a buyer's agent, you know, very rarely do I want to show a UCB. You're wasting your time, unfortunately, you know, and unless you know it's fallen out or something. Great question, though. What else? You know, thoughts? Did you learn anything? Maybe something that you can maybe apply to try to help get the offers accepted? Great. Let me know what works. If you find something else that works or hear anything, you know, we want to keep improving this, because it's not getting easier, unfortunately. So, yeah.
Well, I actually have a seller account, so just one.
Yeah.
We had just a regular inspection period and everything like that, but they countered that we ordered the appraisal within 48 hours of contract acceptance. And then, of course, like I take that from buyers and say, hey, you know, you got the appraisal.
And the inspection money, most
Yeah,
likely.
appraisal and inspection money, I just, you know, obviously disclose that to them, so this is the risk you're taking, but, you know, so I just been very excited.
And there were multiple offers? Yeah, I mean, it's great for the listing agent. That's actually what we countered. We didn't put 48. We said within 10 days to order the appraisal, and they counter back 15 days. Because the reality, normally, if you take 20 days to negotiate the BINSR and you don't order the appraisal till day 20, or maybe if you finish the BINSR early, 15, somewhere in there, right, day 15 to 20, they're taking 10 to 14 days. Guess what? You're not closing in 30 days. Because once that appraisal gets back, you need a week to underwriting and 3 days of CD, right? You need a week to close then, typically. So that's why, you know, 40, 45 days is more average for sure. But that sucks to have to order it right away. And so I would have maybe tried to counter and say, yeah, we'll do that, but give us a 15-day due diligence, because we don't want to spend our inspection money until we get this appraisal results, right? Because that's usually why they're doing it, because the seller doesn't want to wait till day 25 to find out it didn't appraise. And it's 30,000 short, because he's not lowering the price that much, right? Most sellers won't. And so that's why my guess is they had a failed appraisal already. So they're like, we don't want to go through 25 days again, order it quickly so we'll know by day 10 or 15 if this is going to work or not, right? And so from a listing standpoint, that's a great strategy. And it sucks if that's what they want you to do.
We ended up doing it, and this particular one, came in 8,000 under list, 14,000 were accepted. The appraisal thing, and the sellers luckily decided to lower, and everything, so the negotiating it worked out great for the buyers and the sellers, and so that helps. But I was just curious, because I thought about using that to my buyers' advantage.
Yeah, that could be. The challenge, though, is now it forces your buyer to commit more money, right? So 400 inspection and 600 appraisal. Now they're in it for $1,000, right? And so you know, a lot of buyers in that 300,000 price point can't afford to lose 1,000 and have to find another house. So that's the downside when they are trying to force you to do it early. And so if that's what they force, how I would have said is, buyer, let's pay the rush fee so we can get it back maybe in 7 or 8 days, and let's hold off on our inspection until then if we can. But that's a risky move. That's why the better thing is, we'll counter, can I get 12 or 15 days, and then you try that strategy. But the reality of it is, can you get your appraisal back in 10 days? Probably not right now. I mean, mine, this VA one, it took them, she ordered it. It took a week before they confirmed a date. And then it was like 4 more days out. It was literally, yeah, when, I don't know what day it was. It must have been, I mean, they didn't order it though till roughly day 10. But so then, even though we had countered, you know, order it by day 15, they ordered it day 10 or 12. We didn't get it till day 25. You know, it still took forever. You know, so it's nice to put in as a listing agent for 10, you know, days or shorter, but the reality, you know, can you cure them? If they're not through the Binzer, they're probably just not going to do it, you know, because if you're still negotiating that Binzer, I wouldn't order it. I'd go into breach. I got 3 days. I can be in breach and not order that, right? Same with you. You could have waited till, you know, they said 48 hours. You could have waited till 5 days, right? To order that and still, you know, without being able to be canceled. And that's if they cure you. So that 3-day timeline doesn't start till they cure you, right? Yeah, no, great. Nice one that I didn't have on there, but yeah, awesome. So hope that helps everybody. At least give you a little something you can help get that slight edge. Off-market ones, we didn't talk about that. That's another thing. We're starting to use our Arizona Edge, right? The real estate edge, EXP off-market MLS. So put your listings in there and put your buyers in there. You might find something off market, and then you don't have to compete. You got to pay their price, but hey, at least you have a shot, right? No? Oh, you do? No? Yeah? Everybody knows? It's basically online. It's an MLS system, but like exclusive to EXP. We used to have it for Revelation. So, because that's the whole thing with coming soon, right? You can market it to your own brokers, your own agents in-house. You just can't market it to the public. Once it goes public, then it's got to be on the MLS within 1 day. Yeah, they do have an app, but it's Buy Side is the company name, but it's a basically you can go in and add in your listings, or you can go in and put in your buyer's information, and then when somebody adds a new listing, bam, it says, hey, the listing matches your buyer's criteria. There's a lot of agents, you know, I try to, on all my listings, I try to get a week at least off market. So, because it takes a few days to get photos anyway, 3 days or more, 4 days to get them uploaded. So I try to get at least a week, if not 2, to pre-market it before we go live. And during that, I'm putting it in that system. So, you know, maybe, and the idea is to the seller, if I can sell it without going in the MLS, I can save you a little money now. Maybe I'm only paying 2.5% on this exclusive site. And then when it goes on the MLS, I'm paying 3, right? So if we sell it off market, yeah, we won't get 10 offers and bid up, but you won't have people trampling through your house either. We'll get one solid offer at full price, you know? You won't have to deal with the showing. So if you got 10 kids or 5 dogs, that might be the best strategy, right? So, because that's the real challenge, right? If they're not accessible and you can get, you know, 20, 30 people through on the weekend, you know, that's what's going to get you the home sold. As a listing agent, you need many people through, right? And when they're trying to restrict those access hours, it makes it tough. So, all right, well, I've gone a little long here, so hopefully you got everything you needed and can get some offers accepted. So go out there and do it. Don't get discouraged though. You can do it.